This agent used to be one of the strongest agents in the game, consistently seeing play in the pro meta and being renowned as one of the most powerful agents that you could main, but now he sees effectively zero pro play. So what exactly happened to Phoenix, and why did he used to be a dominant meta and pro character, but most likely will never see consistent pro play again? Now, in the early days of Valorant, everyone was trying to figure out exactly what was going to be dominant in that pro level. Oftentimes, teams were experimenting with a lot of characters, and there were some characters that really shined above the rest. Characters like Sage and Cypher were incredibly powerful and seeing a ton of play in the early stages of Valorant, and we did a video covering just how strong Sage was in the early days before she was nerfed into oblivion. Other characters like Brimstone and Silver were also seeing quite a bit of consistent play, but Phoenix was an agent that was seeing a substantial amount of play, all the way from 30% to sometimes even up to 60% in certain small tournaments. When you look at him and compare his pick rates to every other duelist, he was #1 in a lot of the early tournaments. And there are even some teams experimenting with triple duelist setups like with TSM and having success with those, and they really centered around Phoenix a lot of the time. Now, what exactly caused Phoenix to drop? Did people just figure out that the character was no good? Did people misevaluate a lot of characters? And the truth is, it's a lot of different things combined. While Phoenix seemed initially strong, capable of healing himself, giving him sustain, and taking advantage duels with his flashes, we really underrated other duelists. Like, notably, Jett was a character that was completely underrated and disregarded, and I did a whole video on that. And even characters like Raze were really not seeing as much play as they probably deserved in hindsight. We can look and see how much the meta has adapted just with people's understanding of characters, with Brimstone seeing a crazy amount of pick rate and Omen seeing very little, even though Omen was still capable of being a very dominant character at the time. But from one ways to player skill and understanding of tactics, there's so many different things that went into people's understanding over time that changed what characters were dominant on what maps. Now, there were still some players like Subrosa and Drone that were incredibly strong on Phoenix, and I personally believe the pick rate and popularity of these characters in pro play got influenced by players that were extremely good at them more than the norm. It's almost like a pet pick that was extremely good in some players' hands, and they kept on having success with these characters, so you can't really justify them swapping off. Even if other characters are starting to see more meta play and make more sense strategically, you're not going to take your best players off of characters that they're really freaking good at. Now, there were other pros that were having some sort of pet picks. It wasn't just with Phoenix. We even saw like Asuna on Reyna back in the day. But really, Phoenix started to have a lot of weaknesses that really were revealed by what a modern duelist became. So when we think of a duelist today, the main duelists that see play are Jett and Raze. And the reason that they do is because of their ability to take space onto site. And they do this by using mobility, either dashing onto site or satcheling onto site. They get to clear corners. They get to a strong position to trade in the middle of site at the same time. So you're gathering information. You're setting yourself up to clear the back of site with other utility like flashes. And you're engaging incredibly quickly, giving the opponent very little time to respond. So there's a lot of things that creating space entails, but the most important aspect of that entire thing is the fast action, the fast movement, the mobility straight onto site, which is something that Phoenix just cannot do. And it's not just Phoenix. A lot of duelists suffer from this problem where they do not fit what the pro need of a duelist is, and these characters will just not see play. And they'll just sit with Phoenix in like the 1% pick rate of pro play, or maybe even 0. And another problem with Phoenix that we have seen is that Phoenix is good at a lot of different things. One of the things I commonly say about Phoenix is that he's a jack of all trades, which means that he's good at dealing with a lot of random problems. We know that Phoenix is actually a really strong agent in ranked play. The State of Devs released this back in September 2022, where we learned that Phoenix was a very high win rate character, one of the top 3 at the time, consistently seeing high win rates even in the highest ranks of play. So this character is doing well in ranked. He's actually doing completely fine, and a character that gives you a lot of options. I personally think that Phoenix is one of the best characters for ranked play, not only to learn the game with, but also just win with if you get really good with him. However, a lot of the things that make him great in ranked make him bad in pro play, because being able to do a little bit of everything, being able to clear a cubby with your molly, being able to wall a site to make it execute, being able to flash, a lot of these different things can be done by characters that do them better or do them as a specialist. Instead of you flashing yourself in, why not dash in, create that space, and have your initiator flash for you instead? Why not have your Viper or your controller wall for you and you not do it instead? When there's coordination and teamwork, you don't need all trades, you don't need to deal with everything, you just need to do your job and do it extremely well, something that Phoenix just can't do. That being said, there have been some teams that experimented with Phoenix a little bit, like Loud played Phoenix a little tiny bit, equal to like 1% of the pro pick rate. And most of the common strategies around Phoenix today, when we do see him in pro play, really have to deal with the fact that Phoenix can get his ultimate really quickly, and it's a very powerful ultimate that can gather you information and create space. So being able to farm orbs on certain maps like Bind make it so that you could justify having a Phoenix when you can get an ult like every other round if your Phoenix is at least a little bit hot. Now, for the most part, though, Phoenix doesn't see any pro pick rate. And the thing about it is that is perfectly fine, because this character is still a strong character in ranked. And really, this character's kit works and flows well together, and overall is a successful agent even if he doesn't see substantial pro play. Because what would it take to make Phoenix a pro dominant character? You would have to do some crazy things to his kit. You'd either have to overbuff him to the point where he would be completely busted in ranked by making it so his flashes are too cheap, last too long, his abilities are too powerful. I don't think that's a great solution. You would have to rework the character, but he's a perfectly fine and functional character that plays well in ranked. He just doesn't see pro play. I think that's fine. Or a ban system, so to speak, could maybe see Phoenix seeing some dominance. However, for a lot of the reasons that we talked about, if you were to remove the duelists that can actually create space in the traditional way, like Jet and Raze, you probably just would see less duelists see play, not these duelists that can't do those things take their spot. And every one of these changes could mess up his identity, which not every single agent needs to be represented in pro play. And I think it's perfectly fine if Phoenix is an agent that is just a ranked superstar with the occasional pro spin every once in a while to maybe mix things up. But really, the days of Phoenix dominating pro play is behind us. We're not going to see Sub Rosa or Drone pop off of these characters anymore, and maybe that's a little sad for some of you, but for others, it's perfectly fine that not every character is represented. And I really do think in Phoenix's case, he's a character that is perfectly fine never seeing pro play, and just being a really strong ranked character. Now, this doesn't mean that Phoenix doesn't deserve buffs or something like that, but I just don't necessarily think that those buffs should be targeting the character to see play in pro play. Like, we saw massive buffs to ISO, for instance, and it didn't dramatically increase his pick rate in pro play. He was used a bit more, but he hasn't been like a meta staple or anything like that ever since his changes. That being said, I really want to pass the question off to you. Do you think that Phoenix is a character that you would like to see in pro play, or are you perfectly fine with him in his current state? How would you buff or change the character if you were going to make him a pro dominant character? Let me know in the comments down below. And definitely check out Gosu Academy in the description. We run boot camps where we can level up your Valorant gameplay. So if you really want to get better and climb, you're really going to want to check it out in the links down below. And I hope to see you there.